Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Our patient today is 2017 Subaru WRX, and what's wrong with it is the permanent code P0019. Code P0019 is a timing issue. So the code says camshaft position correlation bank 2, right? So this is kind of a tricky code because it doesn't mean like we usually work on P0, 301, 302, 306, which means misfire, right? So that's easy, right? There's missing signal, we need to restore it, right? But with this one, there's no missing signals, but the signals are misaligned. And in the internal combustion engine, timing is everything, right? Back in the day, cars, the engines would have been built in a way that they just kind of self-control, right? There's mechanical switches basically that tell the injector or the carburetor to deliver fuel, for the valves to open, close, and all that, and everything would run by itself. But the efficiency of the engine, it depends on many factors. So modern engines actually detect how much oxygen is being consumed, the even humidity and air pressure and all that, and the injectors and the sparks are controlled electronically based on all those readings. Then the engine obviously is monitored. So if you have a misfire, that was actually my first question when I started working on these. My first question was, how does the ECM know that there is a misfire? Is there like some kind of sensor in the cylinder? There's got to be some kind of feedback, because how would it know? How does it know? By the timing. If one of the cylinders misfires, there's going to be slight delay. So that's how the ECM knows that this cylinder is not contributing to the work of the engine. So with this particular issue, it's a little tricky, but I'll show you what we do in these situations. So this is 2017 version, so we don't have IC 608. Instead, we have IC 705, 704, and 703. Exact same chips. They are $11 each on DigiKey, plus tax and shipping and stuff. And these are actually obsolete, so you can get the P&B version. But there are replacements, so basically we can replace these chips no problem. But those chips would need replacement if we had a misfire, if there was some reading missing, some control signal missing. Because these, I actually haven't looked into the data sheet yet, but I have a data sheet for it and I have chips available, so I will know everything about this chip, or at least much more than I do know about IC 608. Until today, I've replaced, at this point, many of them. Still, I don't know how it works. I don't know its pinout. I don't know what's inside. No data sheet, nothing. With these ones, we do have data sheets. So, for some reason, the newer cars are more repairable. The newer ECMs are more repairable than the old ones. Can you imagine? It usually goes the other way around. But looking at the board, it's a lot different, meaning there's so fewer passive components. We pretty much just have a big MCU, like we do on every ECM, and just three, 1, 2, and 3, some kind of additional chips, 2 transistors, and 3 three chips that I just showed you. These are motor controllers. Actually, they are specifically designed for automotive designs. So between all three of them, I assume they control fuel injectors, and maybe one of them controls ignition, or maybe all three control fuel injectors and the ignition is controlled by one of these two. Possible. There's also interesting, let me show it to you under the scope. I was interested in these 771, 766, 761. Oh no, what am I reading? IC 754, 753, 52, and 51. I haven't checked what it is. TPD1047. I'll have to check what that is. Because it's a nice array over here. I wonder what they do. Maybe these are logic gates. The packaging would suggest that maybe it's a memory chip. Memory chips usually come in these packages. But unlikely. I believe our memory chip is here, because it's usually on the other side. It's usually on the back side of the ECM, but not always. Okay, so having all that knowledge, let's see what we can do. First thing we're gonna do is set the meter in capacitance mode, and we're gonna go through the ECM and measure capacitors. So this one shows up as 114, a little high. It should be 100. It shows up a little higher, but well, what is it, 10%, 14% above. It's not alarmingly high, but I don't know. I mean, it's fine. I would consider it fine. So let's check the ESR on it. Um, 120, around 120 milliohms. That's a little high. The perfect would have been around 60. 120 seems like twice as high, but it's fine. I mean, I would say this cup is okay. If all the cups are like this, it's fine. So let's check the second one. And the second one, you can see the meter, but the meter still shows 0. You can kind of see the meter. Meter still shows 0. Right? It might take a few seconds for the high capacitors to show up on the meter, but this one keeps telling me 0. And it's also 100 mics, which means this one is no bueno. So let's use this meter. My beautiful Chinese meter, Fluke wannabe, never fails. And we have open line. So this cup is no longer a cup. It's like it doesn't exist. There is no capacitance on this rail. Now I performed that for all the other cabs, and actually we should mark them. I didn't mark them before, but we know this one is dead. Let's check another one. If I remember correctly, there are 2 cabs on this board that are functioning out of 2, 4, 6. Not many. On older models, there's 12 cabs on the board. This one has only 6. And this one is dead. And let's check the capacitance with this one. It should be 47. And it shows up as 868 mics. Why does it show huge capacitance? Because either ESR is huge, are very small. Actually, ESR on this one shows up relatively okay, but that could be. But there's no capacitance on it, so this one's dead. We're gonna open them and we'll see if they're dry or just faulty. Next one. $52 and should be 47. So this one's good. This one. This one is faulty. Should be 47 and is 0. Let's check with the other meter. Again, 868 mics. There's, because you might think, you know, it's showing as 800 mics, so isn't that good? Maybe it's in parallel with other cabs, and that's why it's showing so high. Well, this cab is 47, right? This one's 47, and this one's 47. So in total, that gives us maybe 150 mics. Right, and this one's 47, so call it 200 mics. This one's 100 and 100. So in total on this board we have 400 microfarads of capacitance, right? And these cabs are not in parallel. Okay, they might be in parallel with some SMD cabs somewhere, true, but the SMD cabs won't have more than maybe 2, maybe 10 mics tops. They're likely nanofarads. So there's no place on this board where we would want to see 800 mics. So yeah, the cap is gone. And the reason it shows up as high is because the meter calculated that. The measurement was crappy, but the math still works, right? So according to the math, it's 868 mics. So clearly something's wrong with it. This one shows up 0 as well. Let's see what this meter's gonna say. Is it also 800? Or open line? Yeah, 868. Same measurement. So this cap is done. Now, why are we checking for caps if we have an issue with timing? Well, that's exactly right. What are these caps for over here? These caps mainly stabilize voltage. They stabilize voltage rails. These voltage rails in turn supply the logic chips. Logic chips work on relatively high frequencies. This one's 10 megahertz quartz, right? So 10 megahertz that's relatively high frequency. You can calculate 1 divided by period is frequency, so you can or is 1 divided by frequency is 1 divided by period, right? Or was it period is 1 divided by frequency? Oh my god. Regardless of the math, you can use the math to calculate what is your resolution, and that'll be in microseconds, nanoseconds. So that gives the device high resolution. The higher the frequency, the higher the resolution, right? So instead of checking once every second, you check once every 10th of a second. So your resolution is 10 times greater, right? ECM goes way up there when it comes to those measurements. So it counts even in microseconds, maybe even lower than that. But it definitely is capable of counting, well, at least milliseconds, 1,000th of a second. But for the engine, 1,000th of a second might not even be enough. I think that misalignment that is being detected right now, this is probably a matter of microsecond, right? Maybe, yeah, it's probably not the matter of millisecond, but who knows? Maybe it's in the millisecond regions. I don't know, but what I do know is that unless you have a stable supply voltage, you will not keep the timing right. Because as soon as the voltage fluctuates, it drops a little bit, especially when you're controlling the injectors and well, coils not so much, because coils don't require a lot of power, because it's only the ignition rail that just pretty much sends the signal, and the actual power goes from the power rail and not from the ECM. But the injector is fully powered by this device. So one of these chips, I assume, is shorting the injector to the ground. So ECM needs to supply that voltage. Now, some of this voltage is because there's dedicated ground for the injectors, and it's on the ECM. It's not necessarily separate from the rest of the device, but on this device there's more than one ground. Actually, I don't know about this particular one, because this is the first one I'm working on of this model. But on the ones that I worked, there's at least 2 kinds of ground. So when you connect the ECM on the bench, you need to connect 2 grounds on 2 sides of the board, because these 2 grounds are not connected. Once you connect the ECM to the car, I believe there's going to be a short between those 2 grounds. So it's still the same ground, but for one reason or another, it's separate on the board to probably not interfere when there's higher load. To not step on one another, right? Now, what happens when you start pulling a lot of power from the power rail and basically pushing it to the ground? The ground level, if it's not, because ground needs to be on the boards and everywhere, the ground needs to be the widest trace, the plane. It's got to be capable of accepting a lot of charge without going up, at least not too much, right? So when you have a bad caps, which you do in this case, you start pulling the power from the power rail, start pushing it to the ground. If that cap is not capable of delivering that pulse gotta go, that energy's gotta go from somewhere. And it's gonna come from the places it's not supposed to come. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, but you can think of an energy in a manner of being able to quantify the energy. Energy is quantifiable. In fact, that's what the Planck constant is for. You can only have the energy in or let me say that way. The Planck constant tells you what is the minimum energy that you can have. You can't have half a Planck and you can have 2.5 Plancks. It's always the multiplication of the Planck constant, right? So energy is quantifiable, but that's actually beyond the point, because that's on the more of on the quantum mechanics kind of thing, right? But if you think of the supply rail being able to supply voltage in quantities, and say we quantify it, that this capacitor holds the quantity 10 of voltage, right? Or energy. In this case, it just pure energy. So if it holds 10 and we need 8 to deliver the power somewhere, then we just take it from the cap. Then the cap recharges again, right? So the supply rail didn't have to deliver anything. But now imagine that the cap has the capacitance of 0, so there's quantity 0 of energy in the cap. Now we need to pull that energy from the rail, and the rail itself, say it holds 30, quantity 30 of energy. Now we pull 8 from it, so we end up with 28, but the rest of the devices require 30. So we're 2 quantities short on the rail. That means something is going to be starved from that quantity of 2 of energy, right? This is I'm not using the actual, this is just the illustration, right? Don't take this literally. That's not how you do the calculations on when it comes to installing these elements and designing the board. So this is like a gross simplification, but that definitely aligns with what's happening with the car. We have a timing issue, and the timing issue likely results from bad caps, because voltage drops that can throw the entire device off sync, and that's exactly what's happening here. So we are going to do this. We're going to call the customer and offer a recapping. I charge $150 for recapping. Those bad caps, we're actually going to open them, like literally decap them, and see inside how dry they are, if they are dry. Not necessarily the cap, the non-working, non-functioning cap, not necessarily is going to be dry, because dry is only one of the issues that the cap can suffer. We can't really examine the oh my god, what is it called? Basically it's like aluminum foil wrapped around, right? And there's electrolyte in it, so, and the insulator, right? And an electrolyte between two sides of the capacitor. So if that electrolyte is dry, capacitor will lose capacitance, or it'll show up on the meter as high capacitance. ESR will likely either be through the roof, or it'll be negative. Yes, the meter will tell you it's negative, or close to 0 basically, right? The ESR on dry caps could be showing okay. That's why you always need to measure both the ESR and capacitance. So dryness is only one possible issue with it. That's something we can check, but even if we open it and it's not dry, that doesn't mean the cap was good. That doesn't mean that we misdiagnosed it. And there can be something else wrong with it. And final thought on these. So this is 2017. This one is 2004, or was it 2006? I don't remember. Basically, this one is at least a decade older, right? We have roughly even the same 6, 7, 8 caps on this one, right? Anywhere from 6 to 12 caps on these machines. Now, we actually, it looks like we even have the same IC 706. Yep. Okay, so I have the, oh, good to know. I actually haven't even noticed. But it looks like the exact same chip over here. So that's probably controlling the injectors, I would guess, but I will check. These caps work great. I checked them when I received it. They all show up. The capacitance is okay. The ESR is tolerable. It's within the range, acceptable range, right? They're not new, but a decade older than this one. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4 completely dead caps. The conclusion is up to you. I'm just saying. It's not what I expected. I would expect the newer one to at least survive the same as the older ones. Did our capacitor quality go down? Who knows? But that's the reality of this one. And actually, I do get a lot of questions about these. Right? Not every repair that I'm involved in is published on YouTube, because sometimes I physically don't receive the item. I receive the pictures and I don't know, just emailing back and forth, and that's how I fixed the ECM, right? So you don't see those, but I've had a lot of these with this chip. This is the first one that actually made it to my bench. Now, one last thing that the customer sent me the pictures of, and I thought it was liquid damage, because it kind of looked like it on that picture. But as you can see, this isn't liquid damage. This is wax. This is resin that has not been cleaned. So we do need to clean this, and it's on this one and on this one. Sloppy, a little sloppy. I have not seen anything like that on the older ECMs. So is the quality going down? I don't know. But this is what we have. Dead caps and crap load of resin left over. Alrighty, we're gonna call the customer and see if he wants the replacement, the recapping. I assume yes, but also what we can offer is the replacement of all these 3 chips, like just in case, because the customer is in Canada. So I don't know, sometimes I get ECMs from like Virginia, Florida. So in those cases, I can, it costs $8 to ship it back and forth. So we can go back and forth and do stuff. And this will take a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks to get to the customer. It took, I didn't check actually how long it took in the, but I still have the box and I have the tracking number, so I might see how long it took. But it's gonna take longer, right? Plus, I'm not sure if I'm gonna mark it as returned goods, right? But I'm not sure if he's not gonna have to like pay something on the border for it. I don't know. So that's why I'm gonna offer the replacement of these chips with new ones, just in case, just to save on a potential back and forth. Because I hate if I recap it and we send it back and it still has the same issue. I hate when that happens. And that's how it's got to be, because I can't test it on the board, on the bench. Alrighty, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one when we likely recap this one. See you in the next one.